Hello there. The British House of Lords is an outdated relic for many. For outgoing prime ministers, it offers the opportunity to look after loyal companions and indirectly influence the fate of the country. There's a lot of whispering in London about Johnson and who will appear as a peer on the last few meters. Even in the ignominious departure, Boris Johnson is likely to impose his political legacy on Great Britain, and that can hardly be prevented. According to media reports, political companions, loyal helpers, and important financiers are to move into the upper house at the request of the outgoing Crime Minister. Despite considerable criticism, Johnson plans to pave the way for an unusually large number of so-called peers into the House of Lords before he leaves Downing Street. The speculations as to who will benefit from the Prime Minister's resignation honours is currently the hottest topic in political London. Several names that have already been leaked are causing outrage. In a poll, 54% opposed Johnson being allowed to appoint lords before he leaves, probably in a month. Only 13% think that's okay. There is Minister of Culture Nadine Dorries, probably the most loyal supporter of the Conservative head of government. To the ridicule of many, she throws herself into the breach for him when it seems hopeless. Also named is Lyubov Chernukin, wife of a Russian ex-minister and one of the largest donors to the Conservative Party. Entrepreneur David Ross is also a major donor, arranging a luxury Caribbean vacation for Johnson and his partner in the winter of 2019. They could all soon sit in the House of Lords as nobles for life and influence UK politics. Opponents have criticized the second chamber of parliament as a lifelong path to influence the laws that govern us and exclusive access to the corridors of power. Johnson is by no means the first prime minister to use the resignation honours to honour party friends or close associates. Predecessors such as Theresa May and David Cameron also hoisted confidants into the House of Lords. But critics suspect that Johnson could exploit the privilege much more. His previous appointments to this chamber and the nature of his hasty departure from his high office speak volumes. That was written by Darren Hughes, head of the Electoral Reform Society, which advocates reform of the House of Lords, and he wrote that in the Times newspaper. A good 10% of the more than 800 members in the Lords already owe their post to the soon-to-be ex-Prime Minister. These include Johnson's brother Joe, or Baron Johnson of Marylebone, or Yevgeny Lebedev, son of the Russian oligarch Alexander Lebedev, head of the newspapers Evening Standard and Independent, and a close friend of the Prime Minister. And his pompous title is Baron of Hampton in the London borough of Richmond upon Thames and Siberia in the Russian Federation. However, there appears to be a condition to getting the coveted privileged seats. The interested parties, all Conservative Brexit supporters, should sign that they will always vote in favour of the Tory party. Lord William Wallace, a member of the upper house, confirmed this to the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung and said there would be great concern if it went through like this. He and other lords fear that Johnson would influence legislation for a long time in this way. The House of Lords could lose its control function and even waive controversial regulations through. Boris Johnson's resignation honours list will be the ultimate insult, warns the New Statesman magazine. Dozens of cronies, major donors, Brexit cheerleaders and flatterers could move into the Honourable House. Already, only the Chinese People's Congress in the world has more members. Lobbying firm CT Group, owned by Tory advisor Lyndon Crosby, has now also proposed that Johnson appoint up to 50 Conservative lords to push controversial legislation through Parliament. It is true that the debates in the House of Lords are rarely considered. Many consider it a historical remnant. In fact, the second chamber of Parliament has enormous influence. Again and again, the Lords make the life of the government quite difficult. With his appointments, Johnson could shift the balance and make it easier for future Conservative PMs to pass Conservative legislation. The bill that is intended to unilaterally repeal the Northern Ireland Protocol and that will go into the British House of Lords after the summer recess is just one example of what could suddenly gain a majority through these machinations. And that has nothing to do with democracy anymore. Because the favorite for Johnson's successor is currently Secretary of State Liz Truss, who is located on the right-wing edge of the party. On her agenda are, among other things, that Great Britain leaves the European Convention on Human Rights in order to be able to tighten its immigration laws even more drastically, or that the special rules for Brexit that are binding under international law for Northern Ireland are ignored with this new law I mentioned earlier. So they were the first big democracy, but they are far behind many other democracies in the world right now. And I fear this could get even worse with this. I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.